What's up everybody, Cutroneo here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, and this is the 14th video in my progress video series of Dyens Saudade No. 3. So what I decided to do in this video for my 7th day of the week, last week I did a progress video on a specific lick. This week I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to address something that has been commented on in especially the first of my videos in this series. And that's kind of like the authenticity of what I'm doing here. I've been telling you that I've been in the process of learning and working on this piece since 14 days ago. And there has been some questioning on whether or not that is true, whether or not this is all just sort of like a pulling the wool over some people's eyes. So I'm kind of addressing that with this video. Up on the screen, you're going to see a little bit of the sheet music that I'm working on. And what we're going to do is I'm going to show you the new section that I'm going to work on today. So in my last video, I had mentioned that I didn't learn anything new. And today, I'm going to use my 7th day of practice to focus specifically on learning a new section. What I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through the steps and the process for me, of what I'm doing. The decisions that I'm immediately making in this piece, and showing you how I go about learning a new section and what I'm looking for. I'll then work on it for a little bit of time and show you the results of that practice. So what we have pulled up right here, we have this section, these 3 lines of music. This is the second ending of the 3rd movement. And that's the new section that I'm going to be working on. And there are certain things that I look at when I'm initially working on a piece of music. Now, I'm not using this score to work on. In fact, I have the printed score right here. And this is actually what I've been doing to mark in fingerings and everything. I'm going to actually be using that score along and writing in the things that I'm talking about. You won't see me write it in here because I'm not using a digital score. So the first thing that I notice, or the first thing that I'm going to look at, is I'm just going to sort of scan through the music a little bit and look at what's happening. As I'm looking at this section, I'll sort of outline it for us, right? So this is the section that I'm working on. What I'm looking at, so I'm getting a lay of the land a little bit. The first thing that I notice is that I've got this little slur lick here, this whole thing. And if I look at it, it's in groups of 3 notes. So I'll get rid of that line. So I've got these 3, followed by the next 3. And then I've got this one. I've got this one. And then I have groups of 2 here. Now immediately looking at this versus my addition, this last note, that A note, I don't have that in my edition. So that's something, I'm already marking that down in my score. That's something where I'll actually do a little bit of research, and I'll listen to recordings of this piece, and I'll see sort of what's going on with that. Now in the edition that I have, this is the 25th anniversary edition that Dyens did. So this is the most recent edition. So and there's a whole forward of Dyens talking about editing it and making a new edition. So part of me is going to want to go off of the score that I have in front of me rather than this digital copy, but we'll see what happens. So now immediately as I'm seeing this, it's all on the 5th string based on Dyens' markings. That's what I have without this note. Right now I'm going to work on it without that note, so we're going to ignore that. Just sort of X that note out. I'm able to fairly accurately sight read that section, which is, very much within my wheelhouse of what I'm doing. I'm going to write in some right-hand fingering, so I'm going to use I, slur, M, I, M, I, M, I, M, I, M. I'm going there. I don't write them in for every note, but I wrote it in for the first few just to make sure that I knew what was happening there. That's the next section. In my score, I have fingering for that, so I'm not really concerned about writing in any fingering. So this... Yeah. And I can't really tell the fingering there at all, but in my book it has 3 to 1 slur and then open. I'm actually going to change that to 4. 4, 1, 3. And I'm using, so the right hand fingering that's in the book is P, I, slur, P, A, M, P, I, slur, P, A, M, P, A, M, or A, slur, M. So together that's... that part. Going on to the next page, we have that same figure again, but we're going up to different strings. So now we're here, same figure, so nothing really crazy going on there. And then we have that same figure a third time, starting here, right? And we have those 3 notes. I'm going to play those 3 notes AMI. Makes sense for that. Now off to these chords. Looking at these chords, I've got the D on the top, A flat, E flat, and then... Now that's interesting. Okay, so in my version, this A, which does not have a natural or flat sign, in my edition it is a natural, so it's this sort of 1 finger per fret adjacent string fingering. So I'll be doing that. Then I have C natural, F sharp, D A. That is are the chords. Okay. So that's all pretty straightforward. So let's PIM for that. A little arpeggio here at the end. That's the end. So overall, it's pretty straightforward, very lick-based oriented sort of stuff. So as I practice, and I'll sort of walk you through what I'm going to do ahead of time. These are things that I know my process and I know what I would do. So for instance, one of the things that I would do in practicing this is that I would take it 1 measure at a time. So I would go from here all the way to that low D. And I would practice that measure. Then after that, I would practice from here all the way to this low D. After that, I would go from here all the way to that low D. And then finally from here, from here to that chord, from these chords to here, and then finally that section. So I would do that to make sure that all the fingerings and everything that I'm looking for are what needs to be there, any kind of changes that I need to make in those, always arriving on the downbeats of my next measures, because those are transition areas that I need to make sure that I can do. Most of it is landing on an open D, so that makes the transition a little bit easier. These chords, this that should be pretty easy in terms of transition wise. This thing, from this bar 1, bar on the 1st fret to a bar on the 3rd fret, that might prove to be a little challenging. I honestly don't know until I start really working on it. But that, once I have those measures finalized and I know the fingerings that I'm going to be using, which I'm fairly confident on right now at this point, because there's nothing really crazy fingering wise where I would really need to have a fingering that's like, oh, well, I should really do this. Interestingly enough, here in this edition, this whole passage is set to be played with the thumb, whereas in the edition that I have, these last 3 notes are played P-I-M. So I'm going to follow those fingerings. After I have confirmed everything, I will then go and I'll start building up the section. So right now I'm working on this whole section at 180 to the pulse, and well, not really the pulse, but 180 to either the 16th note or the 8th note, depending on where the pulse is. Right now the 8th note is 180, so it would kind of be at this speed. Sort of that speed right now. I know that I won't be able to perform that whole thing and sight read it at that speed, but my goal for the next 15 minutes, I'm going to give 15 minutes to practice this, is to get this section up to that speed. My practice is going to be pretty straightforward. Because this is very lick based, probably won't do a whole lot of letter name singing. This whole part, it's very fingers oriented, so it'll be more about the pattern of what's going on. But here I will definitely sing the letter names of this descending line here. Whoa, what was that? This descending line there, right? So we get all those descending notes. So it'd be A, E, G, F, D, C. Probably going through here. D, 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 C, C, A, A, G, A, F. G, A, F, G, E. Singing those letter names. Maybe some of the inner voices, but I'm not 100% sure. But I'd definitely be doing that. I will definitely be counting 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a... Right. Be doing that, singing that, and working those things out, building it up one measure at a time. Right now I'm just sort of sight reading through it, and you can see that it's, it's kind of within my sight reading abilities, after having just gone through it, just a handful of times right now for you in front of the camera. I'm going to go and practice this now for about 15 minutes. The goal is to be able to play this whole thing, from here to here. I might not be able to play it at 180, but it's definitely going to be something that I will strive for. So I'll see you back in a little bit. All right, so you just heard the result of 15 minutes of practice after I had looked over and sort of went over the ideas with you guys. So as you can see, the practice was fairly efficient. I didn't get up to 180. I'm sort of around 130, 140, which is okay for right now. And I have that section memorized. So now it's the end of week 2. And as I said, in previous videos, I wanted to get... So it's the end of week 2, and as I've said in other videos, my goal for the end of this week was to have the whole thing memorized up to the last page, that Largo section. And I'm pretty much there. Obviously, I didn't get a chance to piece together everything. I have discrepancies in tempos and things like that, but the learning process is well on its way. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it was a little bit different. Sort of letting you in on the process of me working on and learning something new that I've never seen ever before. And as you see, the process is fairly straightforward. There's a little bit of pre-reading and sort of like noodling my way through it to get a sense of what's happening, and then I immediately get to work. I do break it down by measure. If it's a lot of notes like I have in this section, might do more depending on how dense the music is. In this case, because this is pretty dense, I wanted to go measure by measure to make sure that everything was where it was. But then, as we saw, as we looked through the piece, it was pretty repetitive in terms of licks and things like that. So the process was fairly quick and easy, but the big issue was just transitions into one measure and another, making sure those worked. So the goal for this upcoming week is that at this point, 1 week from today, my goal is that I want to be able to play through the whole piece. Learn to memorize the Largo section is the first thing, then be able to get through the whole piece. And so we'll see that in those videos, and we'll see that progression. If you have any questions on what I did, any questions on anything that I talked about, statements, comments, please feel free to put them down below. Like I said, I'll either answer them directly or I will comment on them in a future video. I want to thank you all for watching, and if you haven't done so already, please hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit the bell notification button so that way every time I release a video, you get notified, and I'll see you all in the next video.